As long as it takes to watch and explain every Indiana Jones movie.
Come on, Jewish God, it's just like a cube or whatever.
Of ultimate power.
Okay, fair, but counterpoint museums.
Look, just get going.
Well, the first Indiana Jones film, which is also the only one that doesn't have his name in the title, opens with a retro version of the Paramount logo, then transitions into a retro mountain. Do you think they wrote this movie for the mountain? Like if they made a movie about an Iowa cornfield, would they change the Paramount logo to match? It's cold! Lots to think about. I'm definitely not writing this at 2 in the morning.
You're PMSing pretty bad, huh?
Transition from there to an Iowa corn-fed ass sitting underneath a nice hat. There's also some maybe Sherpa types with 1936 South American asses that scare incredibly easily. And also jungle decor and monkey ambiance, like an old-timey rainforest cafe.
Discover the mystery and intrigue of John C.
There's also a poisonous dart in a tree and Doc Ock.
Hello, senor.
Truly all the fixins for an all-time rager and a terrible experience for the Rainforest Cafe staff.
A wild place to
The Hat Man pulls out a faded map, can't possibly be of any actual use, and determines they're on the right path. And a dude behind him pulls a gun, but is immediately disarmed by Hat Boy's mad whip skills. Like I said, whips are awesome. Bah, bah. Hat Man, also known as Indiana Jones.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
Fills a bag with sand, just in case he needs a bag with sand later. Man, he's gonna feel so silly if he doesn't need a bag of sand later.
I don't like sand.
But he is willing to take that risk, and that's how the movie establishes that he is a hero. Anyway, his bag of sand, and Hispanic Doc Ock enter a temple and are immediately covered in tarantulas, which doesn't faze Indy one bit.
I didn't do shit.
He determines this is one of those booby trap filled temples, and he sticks his hand in a beam of light which activates a spear trap thing that reveals a man boobied completely to death, but like in a bad way.
Amazing. Boobies.
5 seconds later, Indiana saves his assistant by the foreskin of his dicky dick. I don't know why I said it with so many. The hairs of my chinny chin chin, I suppose, is what I was. That's what it was.
Right.
This guy really knows his whips, foreskins, boobies, and presumably other things that aren't related to BDSM, but so far his resume seems to be pointing in one clear direction.
What are butt plugs?
Eventually, they see a golden head statue thing in the distance. Indiana's like, I bet there are more memory machinations here. So he sticks a wooden torch in a hole in the ground, and it's immediately shot with a poisonous dart. And I think we're supposed to think, wow, he's smart. But actually, wow, he's so lucky that the dart was apparently intended to shoot at an intruder the height and girth of a normal torch with no room for error.
0 would be nice.
Any other trajectory in Indiana would be a sexy corn-fed corpse.
How do you do?
But whatever. Indy goes up to the head and deduces, yeah, this is on a pressure plate, so I'd better replace this head with something of equal weight, like, I don't know, a bag of sand! What luck! Rub some imaginary nipples for a little extra luck, Doc Ock. Oh, yeah! Perfect. Unfortunately, Indy gets the weight wrong.
We shall use my larger scales.
And the whole temple starts collapsing, which is admittedly a very funny way for the scene to play out, given all of his competence to this point.
Very small.
And to make matters worse, Indy's assistant betrays him.
Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal.
But his assistant also gets
Booby.
to death because he is, as Indy says, world traveler, this guy. Indiana also narrowly escapes a big-ass rock testicle that threatens to crush him like a metaphor for fatherhood or something, or like what I'm dealing with.
Yes, precisely.
But unfortunately, outside he's confronted by a French archaeologist named Belloc. Which kind of sounds like the Elvish word for friend.
Baguette.
And this Belloc is apparently the Moriarty to Indiana's Sherlock. And also, a bunch of native peoples and Belloc tell Indiana he should have picked a better team. And they're not wrong. Indiana got betrayed literally twice in the first 10 minutes of this movie. Belloc forces Indiana to hand over the idol, which suggests he doesn't believe in this golden head god, which is very close-minded.
Oh,
Indy has now failed 3 times in the cold open, which is honestly sort of refreshing for a movie hero.
I don't think they like me.
But like someone eliminated early from The Bachelor in Paradise, Indiana escapes the situation.
Good.
In large part because the natives can't shoot their bows for shit. they'd be lucky to hit a wicker man, much less a torch.
Oh, that is cool.
And then Indiana escapes on the plane that he presumably rode in on for the small price of a little snake dick.
The other white meat.
Which he hates because...
Can't tourniquet the taint.
But wait! Indiana isn't just a globe-trotting temple robber, he's also a bad-at-spelling professor.
Negus.
Who likely uses his whip to tie up his female students. And also, I guess this gay dude who leaves him an apple, which as we all know is the gayest thing you could do in 1936.
I'm gonna have an apple and some
But after that bit of kind of gay sexiness, Indiana meets with a few members of the military who are like, those wacky Nazis are digging around looking for occult shit, and they mentioned something about finding the anus. And India's like, oh, you mean Tanis? The ancient city of whatever that may or may not house the Ark of the Covenant of the Bible fame, and or...
Tannins are naturally occurring plant polyphenols.
And or the Nazis are just watching a lot of Letterkenny.
Tanis, hurry now.
They want Indiana to help them get to the Ark first because this book has a drawing that seems to suggest that the Ark could really mess up your corn-fed ass if it's used, you know, militarily. Which raises the question, so like in this world, does the government believe all ancient drawings? Even the ones of guys with those like 20-foot dongers? Why isn't the military looking for them? They could use their flesh fire hoses to like swing into Hitler's house and beat him to death.
If I wasn't severely injured, I would beat you off right now.
And fun fact, that was actually the original ending of Inglourious Bastards. Suck it, Hitler! Ah! You belong in a museum! Is this watchable at all?
I don't know.
This is the worst idea I've ever had.
I just blew myself.
But whatever, Indiana's like, sure, I'll go find it. My old professor has the head of the staff of Ra that obviously we'll need, because the only way to find where the Ark is located is by sticking the head on a staff at the exact time of day in a room that has a miniature city of Tanis in it, and then the light will go through the staff and show which miniature building the Ark is in. And the US military's like, makes sense to me, you hired! It's interesting that we later learned that the Nazis ostensibly are committing massive resources and hundreds of soldiers for this express purpose of finding the Ark, while the Americans have sent literally one professor with a bullwhip and a cool-ass hat. To be fair, what does the American military really think about the Ark? Like, do they actually think it's a weapon that can be used against them? Or do they just want to make Hitler sad? Because if it's the latter, they could just mail him honest reviews of his dog shit paintings, because yikes. Either way, unclear!
That painting is bad.
Regardless, Indiana first flies to Nepal, where a pretty lady wins a drinking contest against an ugly man, as the God of the Bible would want.
Oh man, I hate it when he tells the story.
And Indy and the woman, Marion, yell at each other because they used to date when she was a child, because apparently when they originally conceived of this movie, George Lucas wanted her to be 11 years old, and Spielberg reportedly told him that would be a different movie.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
So instead, she and Indy date when she was 14. Woo! That's so much better. Thank God they didn't make her creepy young.
I'm a very sexy baby.
And then they broke up when she was like an 8th grader, I guess, and she's still mad about it. Classic hysterical female child stuff.
Children's book idea. Baby hooker.
She tells him to bugger off until tomorrow, but oops, a weird German man shows up and he's like, gimme that head. And she's like, no. Oh wait, she's not German. He's like, fine, I'm going to poker torture you in the face. And then India's like, not by the hairs of my whippy whip. There it is again. It's just like stuck in my head.
What is that from? Is that Dr. Seuss or some shit?
No, it's the pigs, the little pigs and the wolf. Not by the hairs of my chinny chin chin will you blow down my house, Mr. American Wolfman. Right? They're German pigs.
So the third little pig fired round after round of 5.56 steel core into the big bad wolf's face.
He also shoots a dude right in his damn head. And we see blood pour down his face from his new head hole. And like, this movie was rated PG by apparently Dark Ages standards.
I am instituting prima nocta.
Apparently kids literally had nightmares from this movie, which makes complete sense to me. Dave had to hold my hand while we were watching. But there are also many hijinks. Just silly shooting and sliding, you know, hijinks. Wackiness. Tomfoolery. You get it. At one point, the Nazi grabs the head, but it's been sitting in some fire and it is hot as shit. And so he burns his hand, forcing him to run outside and dunk it in the snow, which is a very Looney Tunes series of events. Similarly, Indiana is about to get shot. But then actually the gunshot we hear is of a gun shooting Indiana's would-be gun shooter, which is maybe the most moviest thing that's ever happened in movies.
The movies.
Why does every movie still do this? I guess it can be sort of emotionally effective, but I'm tired of it. Stop it, movies.
You've got to do better.
But then the whole bar burns down and Marion is like, looks like you stuck with me, Bob. And she picks up the head with a rag that I guess stops the heat, and they head to Egypt, which is also hot.
Everyone in McKinney is dead.
The flight was apparently extremely rough because Indy lost a few buttons on his shirt, allowing his glorious chest to just spill out like the blood from a head hole. And they meet with an Egyptian digger guy who agrees to help as long as somebody explains what you do to please a hot date.
It's a date. You eat them.
But they're pretty immediately attacked by assassins, though Indy pauses for a moment to roll Marion around in the hay. They get separated and Marion kills a guy with a frying pan and hides in a basket before she's betrayed by Apu. Meanwhile, Indiana needs to take a shit, so he sort of dishonorably shoots a swordsman instead of performing the massive fight scene that was in the script. Like seriously, depending on who you ask, Harrison Ford or Steven Spielberg, because Harrison Ford was suffering from the shits and only had like an hour or so left of shooting that day, either he or Spielberg suggested that Indiana just shoot the swordsman since otherwise they might not finish the scene and or it might end with watery shit spilling down his heroic pants. Either way, great scene. No poop flinging. Although that does explain why the movie scored so low on Rotten Bananas, which is like Rotten Tomatoes but for monkeys. I'm so sweaty!
That is one big pile of
But yeah, that accomplished, Indiana goes totally basket crazy trying to find Marion. Where are you? Unfortunately, her basket is loaded onto a truck full of explosives that, well, it flips and explodes. Bummer.
It's very sad.
A few Nazis bring Indiana to a hookah-smoking Belloc who is all like, we're not so different, you and I, Batman. All it'd take to make you like me, the French Joker, would be a little push. And Indiana says, nuh-uh. You already exploded my metaphorical Rachel, and I'm fine.
I ought to f you right now.
And then before he can kill himself in a blaze of glory, Indiana is saved by a bunch of children. And though he is then followed by an Arab Nazi pirate assassin, who secretly poisons his dates. But it's fine, because Nazi Apu eats the dates first and dies. So they know not to eat them.
Right.
Also, this goofy little weirdo reads the markings on the staff head and figures out the appropriate staff length. And even though the Nazis have somehow replicated the staff head themselves, they've only managed to do one side, and there's a random like bonus instruction on the opposite side.
Math is a really cool thing.
So like Dave trying to find his Whopper in the trash can, the Nazis are digging in the wrong place.
You can f this burger.
Because I fed the Whopper to a Nazi monkey who died. Because Whoppers are gross and Nazis are bad.
Your balls will explode, guaranteed.
Indy and his digger friend, which is a phrase I need to enunciate very clearly.
He's a knitter! Knitter!
Indy and his digger friend sneak around the sprawling Nazi dig site, and Indy forgets to look where he's going, and he falls. Eventually, they enter the map/miniature city room, and Indy gets to work.
We will rule over all this land, and we will call it
Sand.
Fingers tracing every outline, painting a picture with his hands. Oh yeah! Then he sets up the staff and it shoots a crazy laser blast that presumably reveals the correct location of the Ark. Then Digger Man lifts him back out of the room with a Nazi flag, which is unfortunate. And then Indiana stumbles into a tent with a tied up Marion in it, which A, hell yeah, let's go! And B, oh right, okay, so I guess she survived, nice. But unfortunately, C,
I hate to do this.
Indiana realizes that if he frees her now, the Nazis will know he's nearby and ruin his plans, which, I mean, isn't necessarily true. She could have escaped all by herself or whatever.
I'm a big kid now.
Is the movie making a bold feminist commentary on how Nazis would never believe she escaped because, she's a woman? Obviously, yes. And like Dave always says, if you find a woman tied up, you leave that woman tied up. And nobody listens to Dave.
There's really no point.
So Belloc unties Marion and tries to seduce her and sneak a peek at them titties.
Boobies.
Neither is successful, unfortunately. Although at one point, the mean Nazi shows up and reveals he's a bit of a nunchuck master, which is pretty tight. Then Indiana telescopes for a bit, and how in the world are people not noticing him? Looks like Hitler's only sent his most clueless soldiers. And speaking of, the reason they were able to replicate the staff head is because it's burned into the mean Nazi's hand.
Hello.
Like when he tried to grab it, he the whole thing like burned in perfectly legibly. But again, nobody ever notices Indy, so he grabs a whole harem of digger friends, and they just get to digging in front of God and everybody, and also seemingly a green screen.
You're not gonna stop there.
After a bit of intense prying, they reveal a dragon or something that scares the ever-loving shit out of Digger Boy, and a floor of snakes, which, as we've established, Indy is not a huge fan of being, you know, in and or around his penis. But no matter, the Ark is at hand, so Indy heads down there and sprays him with gas. This is also how I get rid of Dave when we're finished filming these videos. Just like, Digger Man goes down on or with Indiana or whatever, and they find the Ark and initially struggle to find the open button. I mean, it kind of looks like they on either side. And then they lift the top off and put the golden Ark box in a separate non-golden box. After all this, the Nazis finally notice something amiss, and they steal the Ark and lock Indy in the snake pit. Oh, they also throw Marion in there with a bit of an upskirt shot, which is unfortunate because I think it's a crime to look at that, although Dave was looking at it for like an hour. He paused the DVD. It's crazy.
She's a smart girl.
And also because at one point, Marion thinks Indy's whip is a snake and she tries to like set it on fire.
Ow, Jesus!
Thank God Indy didn't have his dick out. Pubes burn like kindling in my experience, just whoosh. And yes, it does look like Ghost Rider giving you a blowy. Thank you for asking.
Do you dare face the agony of those you have...
So as punishment, Indy makes her dress even sexier. Indy eventually scales the statue and knocks it over, smashing out a wall and creating a probable escape route. Marion heads in there and is immediately confronted by like 1,000 screaming corpses, which... Are those screams diegetic or are they imagined? Or is that just the sound designer getting the most out of his screaming corpse noise budget? We may never know because they escape. The Nazis seem intent on loading the Ark onto a plane, so Indy and Marion instigate a long, involved fight scene in and around said plane. Marion knocks out the pilot and commandeers a turret to massacre like 10 Nazis, which is something I wish more people would do these days. And Indy fights a much larger dude utilizing a dizzying array of bites and dick kicks until eventually he's eaten alive by the plane's propeller and sprays a very appropriate amount of blood everywhere. Like again, you would expect for a PG movie, which of course back then apparently stood for pretty gruesome.
Disgusting!
Then the plane explodes. So the Nazis pivot to loading the Ark on a truck and instigating a long involved chase scene.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
Indy pretty quickly hijacks the truck because the Nazis are surprisingly hesitant to shoot him or to check to see why the truck is suddenly slamming everybody off the road. But eventually, the dudes in the back go check and Indy is shot in the arm, causing blood to spray all over the windshield, which, I mean, it's pretty rad, don't get me wrong, but it's also scary to imagine a 6-year-old watching this.
I see dead people.
When I was 6, I got nightmares from playing Marathon, and Indiana Jones graphics are much clearer. Indiana is thrown off the truck, which forces him to pull off one of the coolest stunts ever put to film. Dude goes under the truck with his whip, comes up the other side, and re-hijacks the truck. Absolute masterclass stunt work.
It was fun, I enjoyed it.
The fact that stunt people can't get Oscars is a crime that we should write like today. We should fix it today by melting the faces off a few Hollywood execs. Something to think and meet under a bridge at midnight with various handheld weapons about.
We have a group that meets Fridays at midnight under the Brooklyn Bridge, and the password is Sic Semper Tyrannis.
He then takes the truck and runs all the main bad characters off the road, although unfortunately none of them explode into geysers of PG blood and viscera. Indy hides the truck with the surprise help of a bunch of locals who are pumped about having helped. Why? Do they not like the Nazis? Bigots? Reverse racist much? Wokeism has taken over this movie. The loony left is running the asylum.
I don't think he knows anything, honestly. I don't.
They load the Ark onto a boat, finally correctly matching the artifact's name with a corresponding mode of transport. And man, I sure hope the digger guy is getting paid a lot for how much he's helped.
And this is for you.
Oh, well that's something. Would have been nice if there was a little tugging involved.
You just shake it.
But he seems pretty happy.
Another one.
On board, Marion and Indy rekindle the relationship they began when she was a teen, beginning with a pretty sexy smooch right on Indy's weenus.
Here.
Which is so hot, I mean, I guess he comes and falls asleep right there. Not a lot of stamina, this guy.
We never seem to get a break, do we?
In the hold, an apparently Jewish rat worships the Ark. The boat is then stopped by a German U-boat, and they steal Marion and the Ark, while Indy steals aboard the submarine. Now, I've seen a lot written about how, well, how does he hold his breath until the next scene when the sub docks and he's all wet? But technically, we never see the sub submerge. 1936 is pre-World War II, and there's not inherently a need for them to be under the sea at this point.
Right.
In fact, we see the U-boat still out of the water well before they actually arrive at the base, so maybe you're all just being idiots? I'm smart.
Run, Forrest, run!
Indiana hops off the Unterboat and punches and strips Nazis. It's too thick for their uniforms because Nazis are all waif-like pieces of shit.
It's so funny because it's an understatement.
And then one waif-like piece of shit is like, hey, why did we all stop on this island to open the Ark? And Belloc is like, you really want to bring the Ark all the way to Berlin and Hitler and not know if it's the real Ark? Nah, that'd be crazy, my guy. And the Nazi's like, you're right, my dude. Let's process with the Ark through the desert. But then Indiana is like, hold up, my bros. I'm gonna shoot the Ark with a rocket launcher unless you let Marion go. And Belloc is like, do it. You won't destroy history. You're an archaeologist. And also, power play, I'm gonna eat this damn fly without batting an eye. And Indy is like, damn, you're right, player. And he gets captured and tied up with Marion. This rock.
That's right.
So now they're doing an Ark ritual, and Belloc has inexplicably dressed himself up as an ancient Jewish priest or whatever, which is kind of problematic, but also just sort of confusing. Like, does he actually believe this is a magical weapon or something? And if he does he really think he can just pretend to be a Jewish priest or whatever? I think if God is real and he uses this thing to kill things, he could probably see through your big hat, you weirdo. I'm surprised at how all in they all are on the magical qualities of this thing. Anyway, they open it up, and at first it's like Dave's butthole after a day trip to the Outer Banks, full of sand. But then also like Dave's butthole, starts popping and exploding and weird ghosts emerge. And Indiana is like, hey, Marion, you should probably shut your eyes. This seems bad. Which is also what I said to all of the other kids on the went on the senior trip to the beach. And ghosts started popping out of your butthole. And I was like, guys, we should just close your eyes. Trust me. And I'm surprised that Indy has this much foresight, considering at the beginning of the movie, he was like, magic? But whatever, he's right. And everybody else's faces fucking melt. And their heads explode, and the sky opens up and a pillar of fire sucks everybody up? Like to heaven? Well, that's not so bad, maybe. I mean, I hope I don't have to have my face melt and my head explode to prepare myself for the new heavens and the new earth, but not really my choice, I guess. Now shoot! Marion and Indy survive, and hey, the love music in this movie is suspiciously similar to Star Wars. Maybe it's just John Williams' subtle way of playing up when a relationship is weird because they're related, or maybe one of them used to be a child. They've brought the Ark to the military and they're like, hey, thanks. We're gonna lock this up in a warehouse forever and probably never look at it again. And hey, people also make a big point about how if Indiana never showed up, Nazis would never have found the Ark, and or even if they did find the Ark, they would have brought the thing to Hitler and ended the war when he opened it up. But even if that were the extremely probable case, like they could have easily grabbed it from Marion, they already knew where they were going, didn't they? Then where does the Ark go? Probably off somewhere with some crazy former Nazis to Argentina to be studied and turned into a weapon that kickstarts the Fourth Reich or whatever. At least with Indy's involvement, the Ark gets buried in a shitty American warehouse until presumably eventually ending up in a Mar-a-Lago toilet.
So true.
Not to say that Americans are the best people ever, but we are good at losing things behind bureaucratic tape and nonsense. My grandfather entered the Atlanta DMV 17 years ago and he's still trapped there. He belongs in a museum. He's trapped there until he explains all the Night in the Museum movies. I don't know. So might as well bury the Ark rather than risk it being nabbed by Stalin or something. Maybe was a mistake, I scream, as nobody cares anymore because that has been gutted like a once beautiful fish.
Jump! Cover your heart. Ah, my bad, I meant turn left. Even Hindu gods make mistakes sometimes.
Hindu god? You don't sound like a Hindu god.
What do you mean? What is a Hindu god supposed to sound like? Hey, speaking of Ki Hui Kwan, have you watched Everything Everywhere All at Once yet?
For the purposes of this commercial, no, I have not. None of the streaming services I've signed up for carry it, Hindu God.
Oh man, you need to see it, and you totally can with NordVPN. I could talk about all the incredibly advanced security stuff they do to keep you safe and anonymous online, but what's really important is you can watch movies on the streaming services you are signed up for, even if you don't live in the country where those movies are actually available.
Could you show me an example of that in practice?
Absolutely, check it out. Yes, Everything Everywhere All at Once isn't available in the US on Netflix, but NordVPN lets you switch your IP address to another country like Turkey, and then boom, there it is. One of the greatest films of all time, ready to stream with a service you're already signed up for. Right now, you can get a 2-year plan at a huge discount, plus 4 additional months for free when you use my link, nordvpn.com/breeding.
What if I don't even like Everything Everywhere All at Once? Is there perchance, I don't know, a risk-free 30-day trial where I'll get all my money back? Guaranteed, Hindu God?
It just so happens there is a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee if you head over to nordvpn.com/breeding or click the link in the description below.
Well, if I sign up, will you make the boulder stop chasing me?
No, I will not.
Damn it!
Hey, I'm right here.
Another Indiana movie, another Paramount logo mountain that turns into a real mountain, or real-ish, because the mountain is on a gong that's getting banged.
Dong.
To announce the arrival of a singing lady and dancing ladies, and basically just an opening dance number. Because Steven Spielberg is kind of obsessed with musicals.
Sometimes I see things that would have been a better idea than what I'm now seeing.
And I guess he was going to shove one into some movie, just like that insane producer who wanted a mechanical spider in every movie he made.
Most impressive.
Seriously, Google John Peters.
He has an 80-foot tarantula.
It's a bummer that they cut the hip-hop dance battle from Saving Private Ryan.
I smell something sour.
That's disconcerting.
Now they're tap dancing. And how confused were theater audiences back in the day? Were they into this? Like, oh, I was expecting a swashbuckling adventure, but instead I get tap dancing? What a pleasant surprise! Sadly, we may never know because everyone who was ever alive to see this movie when it first came out is now dead. Isn't that crazy? Time is wild.
Why should I live?
But these Shanghai businessmen sure seem to enjoy it. Oh, also, it's 1935, by the way, because this is an inexplicable prequel film for no clear reason. Should I assume that every character not in the next film dies a brutal death? 100% yes. Everybody you see in this movie is dead now. I don't know. So here's Indiana looking dapper in a white suit and speaking Chinese.
Dong.
Evidently, Indiana has found the ashes of Nurhaci.
You never told me that you spoke my language.
Evidently the first Manchu emperor. And Indy hopes to trade it for a big-ass diamond because that's way cooler. The Shanghai guy's like, nah, dog. So Indy grabs the singer chick and threatens to just fork the shit out of her. They lazy Susan some stuff back and forth until eventually it's revealed that Indy has been poisoned.
Oh, right, the poison.
And only Shanghai guy has the antidote. Furthermore, Indy snuck in a loyal waiter.
But it wasn't.
That's not a waiter.
But that dude gets pretty immediately shot to death.
Dong, Grandpa is talking to you.
Desperate, Indy stands up, grabs a flaming meat skewer, and just impales a guy. Causing everybody else in the club to flip out. And setting off a truly wacky sequence where Indy crawls around on the floor trying to grab the antidote that everybody's kicking, and the woman named Willie crawls around trying to get the diamond that everybody's also kicking. There's also much punching and throwing into the band, and yet another semi-abortive dance number, friggin' balloons, and a Tommy gun versus a rolling gong shield, which would make for a great Captain China cold open if my spec script ever gets bought. Until eventually they fall out the window and into a car driven by a small Shanghainese orphan named, I guess, after Dave's penis.
Short round.
Little Dave?
Little Dave. Trying to think of another joke, but it's too hot.
Like my penis.
Hold on to your potatoes.
Indy heals himself with Willie's tits, and a chase scene ensues that has both shooting and a rickshaw crash. If you're into that kind of thing.
Wow.
And they hop out of the car, and a British man is like, I got you a ride on this plane. And they're like, tight. But then the door closes, and it has the same name as the Shanghai guy. And it's like, oh no, I bet this will end poorly. And spoiler alert, it does.
There might be a slight inconvenience.
But not for a shockingly long time. Like literally hours later. The pilots straight up squirt all the fuel out of the plane and then abandon ship themselves hundreds, if not thousands of miles away.
Oh, we got one.
This is an incredibly complicated plan. Wouldn't it just be simpler to shoot Indy in the head and throw him out the window? Hell, you don't even need to shoot him. Just roll him out the window while he's sleeping. Why blow up an entire plane that you own? Unless they suspect the plane is secretly an Autobot and they work for the Decepticons. Which would make sense, because Transformers apparently fought in World War II, if you remember. Check out my previous video for more details. Indy can't fly the dumb plane, so they jump out of the plane in an inflatable raft, which they then sled down snowy mountains with.
Enjoy the fresh powder!
Before flying off a cliff into a whitewater rafting sequence, because complexity is apparently the theme of this movie. Good! And I'm just surprised they didn't also end up in an active volcano that shot them to the moon. And what rhymes with beat? Yes, feet, as in the creepy old Indian man feet that only a Dave could ever truly love. He takes them back to his village and gross, it's full of handsy pores. They give them some food, but Willie doesn't want to eat it because she thinks it's gross.
Eat it. Eat it.
Just eat it. Just eat it.
But then she does eat it because Indy is like, eat the food, Willie! I wish he was not in this movie. When Willie? Am I overdoing that? Maybe I should just do it the one time as a reference and then just let it go.
You're embarrassing me.
While Willie sucks down her Indian slop, the Indian guy is like, all right, so here's the deal. We used to have this sacred stone, right? Totally rad stone. This sick-ass stone got stolen, though, by some nearby jerks at Pancake Palace.
They took the stone from here.
And then everything here got shitty and there's no food or water, and also they stole all our children, so if you guys could get that rock back for us, and I guess our kids, but I'm less worried about that, we'd super appreciate it and help you get all the way to Delhi, or a city that has an actual airport. And Indiana is like, tight. That stone is probably one of the 5 Sankar stones given by the Hindu gods to help humanity fight evil.
I've seen stones like the one you lost.
Those are balls.
I would like to get that stone for literally
Fortune and glory, kid.
This is confirmed when a dying kid who escaped from the Pancake Castle shows up with a scrap of parchment that I guess confirms that. Looks like a bunch of dumb shit to me, but
those are balls.
They hop on some elephants that this incredibly poor and cursed village just had lying around and head towards the Indian IHOP. Willie, as you might imagine, sucks at elephanting. We're gonna get a lot of mileage out of her being incompetent, yeah?
Very funny.
Oh, look, here's an entire scene where she runs around screaming while Short Round and Indiana yell at each other about poker.
You cheat.
This movie is becoming downright Transformian in its loud obnoxiousness. The main difference is Indiana says sweetheart,
Sweetheart. 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 Sorry, sweetheart.
more often than a Spangler Candy CEO, because they make sweetheart candies. I don't know if he has to say it a lot.
We moved Necco wafers and sweethearts to Mexico.
Muy bien.
They find some big-ass Morbius bats and scary statues, and it's all too much. So their guides take the elephants and book it back into the jungle.
What are you doing? Go! Get the out of here, you stupid idiot!
And no matter, they'll head the rest of the way on Dave-approved feats. They're met by a fancy man who already knows Indy by reputation, and they also find more dancing. Sick! I love dancing!
Indiana Jones and the Dancing Ladies and the Short Round Chubbies, yeah!
Hard to believe, isn't it?
They also meet a British soldier man, and Willie gets sexed up in some sort of localized garb and mentions that she's gonna maybe have sex with and or marry whoever the Maharaj of this place is.
I think the Maharaj is swimming in
Boobies.
Turns out that the Raj in charge is a child. So I guess they're continuing that theme of our main characters dating children.
Maybe he liked older.
Boobies.
Love the callback. Another long sequence unfolds where Indy and the host sort of argue about how shitty India's past is, while the British soldier literally occupying the country somehow attracts basically no ire.
This doesn't happen very often, does it?
And Willie tries to eat all sorts of nasty shit like eyeball soup and bugs and monkey brains because, haha, India's disgusting. Indiana accuses the host of having that dope rock, and the host accuses Indy of being hated in some places so much that they literally want to chop his penis off. Literally.
It was my boobies.
And eventually they're told to shut up by the small child Raja, and they retire to their quarters.
I'm ashamed.
And since everything is really more of a sequence than like interwoven storylines, we now get a whole thing where Willie eats an apple out of Indy's hand and a kiss. Where the hell did that come from? I mean, sure, she's stacked. And he's Harrison Ford-esque.
I'm a scientist.
Well, what do you know?
But until this point, they've exclusively hated each other. And okay, they sort of yell at each other and go back to their separate rooms to sort of hornily wait for the other to come in.
If you want me, Willie, you know where you can find me.
Thankfully, Indy doesn't even have to wait for Willie because a man jumps out of the shadows and offers to do some sexy asphyxiation stuff with him. And Indy is so into it that he returns the favor. Because he's a generous choker, that Indy.
Oh, be gentle with me. Oh, be gentle with me.
Indy does finally head over to Sweet Willie's room to look for any other would-be sexy assassins and also to feel up her sexy statues, inadvertently revealing a secret sexy passageway to creepy shit untold.
Boobies.
The first thing they encounter is a crinkly sound that Short Round says he thinks sounds like fortune cookies.
Do I step on fortune cookies?
You know, because fortune cookies are the first frame of reference all Asians have for anything. Like, wow, this steak tastes like fortune cookies.
Wow, this wallpaper is the color of fortune cookies. Wow, thank you for proposing with a ring that for some reason reminds me of fortune cookies.
It's not fortune cookies.
But unfortunately in this scenario, that's no fortune cookie.
Pork chop sandwiches.
It's just funny that it's like, what do you mean?
Yes.
This is no going and you tell me do things I don't.
Shorty inadvertently activates a trap that may or may not remind him of fortune cookies, and spikes pop from the floor and the ceiling, and the twain attempt to meet and make a fortune cookie pate out of our heroes.
My God, did that smell good.
But fortunately, Willie didn't follow them, so she gets to save them by screaming a lot and sticking her hand in dirty holes.
Yo, glory hole!
Of course, then she runs in the room and reactivates the trap so they're forced deeper into the fortune cookie-esque cave. Eventually, they find themselves in some sort of freaky-ass temple where a bunch of weirdos do downward dog and rip out dudes' hearts with their bare hands. But don't worry, not having a heart doesn't kill the dude. Dunking him in the lava pit does. Oh hey, the Maharaja is here, which means that he lied earlier. And also, is it just me, or is this cult party like a real sausage fest?
Cathey, would you like some sausages?
Even the people they're killing are dudes. It's like, ugh.
Sausages!
Gay!
The head weirdo pulls out what I assume is an ornate egg.
She's got a little hard-boiled egg going there.
And it starts glowing alongside a couple other eggs when placed in a big skull thing. Oh, apparently it's actually the Rock from the Village, which kind of sounds like the title of a Dwayne Johnson's Jenny from the Block remake. Is a joke I wrote at 2 a.m.
But there's one problem. Everybody still thinks that I absolutely suck.
Anyway, Indy kisses Willie again because I guess they're madly in love now.
But not today.
I just don't want you spending all your money getting her all glittered up for Easter.
And he whips himself down to grab some egg stones. Indy really likes what the eggs are giving.
I'm sure that Egg is a very nice person.
But Shorty and Willie get grabbed, which is a total buzzkill. Indy stumbles upon a bunch of child laborers because I guess this is a Republican temple, and then he himself is grabbed, probably because he's all woke about these hardworking kids. Take that, communism! Roe v. Wade! Indy is thrown in a cage with Shorty where another small child casually mentions,
I pray to Shiva. Let me die.
It's nice to finally have a character I can relate to. I'm so sweaty! Indy is then dragged in front of the Maharaja and the head priest guy, and they're like, look, we enslaved children to help dig up the extra 2 stones that we need to activate our version of the 5-stone infinity gauntlet that we'll then use to defeat the Jewish and Christian gods. So okay, in the world of Indiana Jones, in just 2 movies, we've now basically proven the existence of the Jewish God, which is, you know, basically the Christian God, give or take a Jesus. Jesus Kung Fu! And like some variation of the Hindi gods.
Shiva, Kamini Soma, Kandakam Shiva,
Hey! That's utterly incredible. I wonder if this will affect Indy or the world moving forward. No? Great. Indy is like, well, I don't like that. So they try and force him to drink blood, which he also doesn't seem to like. But eventually they get him to drink it by voodooing his effigy with fire and whipping him with his own whip. Like, who are these scenes for? Who wants to see Indy drink blood and get whipped? No, Dave, put your pants... I know you. I'm talking about like the normal people on the internet.
I'm sorry, I was weak.
Get out of the glory hole, Richard!
Okay,
Fun fact, this movie helped create the PG-13 rating because finally somebody was like, whoa, 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 let's limit this kind of whipping blood trauma to teens. I mean, little kids can still get in, but now their parents will have been mildly warned. Anyway, whatever. Indy has a rough time digesting his blood juice because it's actively brainwashing him to take his shirt off, which like, hell yeah, give me some of that blood.
Kalima protects us.
I can think of a few people I'd like to brainwash into showing some skin. Also, Willie is about to be sacrificed to the lava monster next, and brainwash sexy Indy kind of helps them do it. Despite Willie spitting in his face. Like a killer whale. Like a free Willy.
Yeah, that's good.
Let's free Willy.
Elsewhere, Shorty is a slave now. It sounds like the worst rap lyric of all time. Shorty is a slave now. Oh no, I don't think so, Will I Am. That feels...
In this context, there's no disrespect.
But only briefly, because he chops off his chains and pulls a sick ladder stunt only to run up to Indiana and get totally... They lower Willie into the pit and Indy is super into it. But why didn't they rip out her heart? Too hard to get at through all our, padding. They're cool killing people, but draw the line at groping. It's actually kind of admirable. I'm really happy that Me Too got all the way down here. Short Round pokes Indy with a torch, causing him to snap out of his blood trance and punch everybody and huck them into the fire pit. And then he goes for the head priest, but he scurries away through a weird little secret, like a little floor hatch. He just kind of... I guess you needed a way for him to survive to the end. Might as well give him a floor hatch.
I heard a banging on the hatch door, shouting.
No, none of this is real.
Then we get a fun moment where Indy starts to pull out his beloved Willie, but then he's attacked. So she falls again, and he whips her out again, but then she falls again, and so on and so forth until he finally frees Willie harder than Jesse, which is from Free Willy.
Yeah.
And she slaps him. Gotta keep running. Indy stuffs the eggs in a sack and
calls it a egg.
Speaking of, I don't want to make this too weird, but this shot, it's framed a little weird. He is a dick height, okay? I don't think that's why they cast him, but it's fine because then it becomes sweet, so it's fine. And the children take this opportunity to revolt, and Indy unlocks their chains because he's being paid by George Soros, probably. And the cultists finally get to answer the age-old question of whether they could win a fight against 100 fifth graders. And the answer is, no.
May we see 5th grade physical sciences.
Then Indy gets punched in his butthole. So Shorty whips that guy's butthole. And then Indy and another man hop into a bathtub-sized minecart to fight in a more intimate setting, but it's challenging because Maharaja keeps voodooing Indy's butthole. God, leave his butthole alone.
Ow! He's hitting me in the butt! He's hitting my butt! Don't break my butt!
And Shorty crawls up, not his butthole, and fire pokes the Maharaja, revealing that he too is brainwashed, and then Indy causes the guy to drop a rock on his own head and get his scarf or whatever sucked into a squooshy machine that squooshes him. They still need to get out of there, so Shorty somehow kills several adult men. Well, it becomes clear that Indy is really only here for the zip line.
What?
All you do all day is go on the zip line.
He's too rough on the rope.
Shut up, Mike.
He pulls on the rope.
You've insulted me.
He wrenches on the rope.
They all end up in a minecart kicking off yet another long action sequence. There's some shooting. There's some sand knocked onto people. Some minecarts flip. There's some Shorty tugging. There's some wheelie punching. And there's some minecart jumping. And the bad guys end up releasing the river into the tunnels right as the cart reaches the end of the track. They escape to a cliff and end up at a bridge that, just like me, has
what?
rickety dick. Unfortunately, there are crocodiles in the water below and bad guys on both sides of the bridge. Indy chops the rope holding up the bridge, which kills most of the bad guys, and forces a dangling ladder fight with the remaining handful, including the hard-handsy priest.
Sweetheart.
And I wish instead of yelling at Indy, future martial arts whiz Short Round had dropped down the ladder and kicked the priest into the water. That would have been everything. Everywhere all at once. Let's take a break to watch that movie. Everybody hop on to Turkish Netflix. Get your NordVPN subscriptions.
You won!
But no time to dwell on that because they're shooting arrows from the far bank now, and Indiana literally always pauses after any new development to sort of mug a face for the camera. Every time an arrow hits, he's like, what? Gah, 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 gah. Seems like a fatal flaw, but I guess it's worked so far. So to finish off the priest, Indy invokes the name of Shiva, which makes the eggs catch on fire or something?
Shiva, Kamini Soma, Kandakra.
Not sure how he knew to do that, but I guess my guy reads a lot of weird parchments. Then the kindly Imperial British Army, who's never done anything wrong, shows up.
Oh, yeah, there it is, Trundle, written in blood.
And they just massacre all the native peoples. Our heroes!
It's about time!
Cut to the village thriving now that their egg is back, but I still don't see a single Xbox. How much are they really thriving? Does anybody in this village even have Game Pass? I doubt it. They're all pretty pumped that all the kids are back, but we'll see how they feel at 3 a.m. when their kids shit the bed or have a bad dream about, I don't know, the time that they were child slaves in a cult temple, or about how their current living situation has no Xboxes. Anyway, we end on Indy and Willie yelling,
"Think again, Buster!"
and making out, and getting pissed on by an elephant. And like, where the hell are Willie and Short Round literally 1 year later? Did their plane go down on the way back to England? Did they die of dysentery? Did they drown in elephant piss? Why doesn't Indy mention them at all? Something happened, and I need to know what it is on a Disney Plus limited series with Harrison Ford's Uncle Bernie corpse.
I have no knowledge about that and don't really care. Do you?
Real quick, not sure where to stick this in, but I think one of the main issues with this movie is the sequence thing that I keep bringing up. Like, there's no B-plot or any characters with motivations more complex than is Asian or yells. I don't know. And the last movie had Marion and Belloc and the crazy Nazi guy who we got to follow around and see what they were up to, but in this one, Indiana Jones is in like 99% of their shots. We never leave him or his perspective. At the end of the day, it feels like there were only about a half dozen scenes stretched out into eternity, and ultimately, you don't particularly understand or care about anybody's motivations or development. It's just sort of a vehicle for action set pieces and weird, creepy cult stuff. I mean, like my wife said to me after our wedding night, we need to get more in here to make this work. All right, that's it. Dick joke, fart noise, burp, Dave's mom.
I'm the Christian God, and you need to walk across this vast chasm with faith.
Yeah, I mean, Christian God or not, like, there's clearly a bridge.
No, there isn't.
If I turn my head, I break the illusion. It's pretty simple. Fuck! Ah!
Jesus Christ. That's for blasphemy.
Is it? Will it? Yeah, and yes! Another confirmed Paramount logo to mountain transfer. But this time it's an American mountain because hell yeah, bald eagles, gun deaths, ensuing hospital funeral bills that crumble you for life, USA, USA! We see a lot of shots of boys on horses, one of which is surprisingly shaky for a static shot in the final edit of a massive blockbuster film. We're gonna tie it down, use a sandbag, you idiot.
You disgust everyone.
Anyway, they're made to dismount. Like they're told to dismount, but I wrote it like frickin' Faulkner over here. They're made to dismount.
You're crazy, boy!
They're made to dismount. And a fat kid falls over, and I guess they're Boy Scouts.
Oh my.
The aforementioned Chubby and another kid crawl into a cave because I guess today is the get stuck in a cave and have one of your rescuers get called a pedo by Elon Musk badge. Miraculously, they stumble upon some dudes digging, and a guy that looks like an Indiana Jones stunt double holds up some sort of golden cross, and we realize Indiana is actually the slimmer child, and this is Utah in 1912. If these movies go any further back in time, we'll have to watch the adventures of the baby who kept whipping around his own still attached foreskin. Is that the joke I want to go with? Too late! Too many videos to make, too little time.
Why give his genitals cosmetic surgery?
I hope this green screen looks good. If not, this has been a very wasted day.
Looking good.
Indiana says the cross
Belongs in a museum.
and that he's not scared of snakes, which would very much surprise later Indy.
Snakes. I don't know no snakes.
And he steals the cross and runs away, hopping on a horse to out-horse some 1912 vehicles, which shouldn't be that hard, right? How fast do they go? He boards a circus train, and I guess we're supposed to believe he develops his fear of snakes after falling into the snake pit, but he's totally fine. I didn't develop a fear of balls when I fell in a ball pit. I developed a fear of balls after a ball robbed my house and murdered my puppy.
Reach for the sky.
Gotcha! And I've been murdering every ethnically diverse criminal organization searching for that ball ever since.
I came in like a ball.
Oh look, a snake even helpfully allows Indy to escape. Snakes are friends.
Not food.
Remember kids, you see a snake, try to hug it. Steven Spielberg told you to.
He won't be here in the morning.
The bad guy's bored too, and everybody's running around presumably looking for circus peanuts, and at one point, Indy almost gets horned in the dick and or eaten by a lion. But he manages to shrink his testicles inside his abdomen and whip himself in the face with a whip hanging on the wall, respectively. Pretty cool that we now have the origins of his snake fears, whip, chin scar, and why he was never able to have any children.
Pineal. Softiosis.
Or was he? Ooh. Oh, foreshadowing. Indy eventually escapes the train in a magic box and tries to get his dad's help, but his dad is entirely uninterested. Even after the fat kid starts literally trumpeting the arrival of the sheriff, who betrays Indy and gives the cross to a fancy man with a limp outside.
2 nothings is nothing. That's mathematics, son.
What the heck is his dad doing in there? Cranking it to medieval art? Not a good time, Mr. Jones. Cover your dick.
That's not what your mother said last night.
Anyway, even though he won, the indie-ish maybe criminal is like, you're pretty cool, kid. Here's my pretty cool hat. Which back then cost like 3 months' salary, so the guy was obviously hitting on young Indy, you know, to keep the theme going.
Oh my.
Or the hat was cursed. And given all the weird adventures Indy finds himself on in these movies, I'm willing to believe in a haunted hat. I mean, man, I can't wait for the 6th film starring AI Indiana Jones called Indiana Jones and the Spooky Ghost Hat. Straight to Disney+. Fast forward to 1938. The actor who played young Indy, River Phoenix, tragically died from an overdose, causing his brother to literally become the Joker. And Indiana Jones is now getting punched in the face on a wet boat. The same fancy man from 26 years earlier is still there limping around, and Indy is again trying to steal that cross from him.
That belongs in a museum.
To that end, he commits a kind of a little bit of a light hate crime, but just flattening that guy. His legs don't work that great, and he's kind of old, dude. I don't think you're allowed to do that.
He can do what he wants.
He then double punches some dudes and abandons ship while it literally explodes. And that's fortunate, but what was his original plan? And when he gets picked up by authorities at some point, what is his backstory? Why was he on a boat that he almost certainly snuck aboard and which eventually exploded, killing everybody except him? Did they just let you go around killing people if you were an archaeologist back then? I guess Lara Croft also does the same. Wait, do all archaeologists have a license to kill? If so, I really chose the wrong college major. I mean, they don't let English majors do shit.
Clicking. Double clicking.
Look at me! No!
Well, you certainly seem to know your stuff.
Now he's back at college and he's more popular than ever. I bet he is drowning in gay apples.
Nom, nom, yummy.
He's doing, what is it, bobbing for apples? Wink? But like testicles?
You don't want any of those apples.
Those are balls.
What
What are you talking
about? You get it. He sneaks out the office window and is immediately approached by men that immediately whisk him away to some sick-ass apartment. There, a fancy benefactor of the museum Indy works with, named Walter Donovan, walks in and is like, hey, check out this rock.
That's right.
Evidently, it points to the location of the Holy Grail. That is, the cup that Jesus sipped grown-up grape juice from at literally his last ever supper.
Does everybody want soup?
And I guess also the cup that some of his blood dripped into while he died. Surprised anybody had the foresight to bring the cup from dinner to death.
Oh yes, it's very nice.
Theoretically, drinking from the hopefully run through the dishwasher once or twice grail will grant you eternal life.
Right.
We know this because it was discovered by 3 knights during the First Crusade, and while one guy stayed behind to guard it, the other 2 went into the desert. Only one of whom reached a friar and told him the whole story.
Well done, ain't it?
Of course, the directions to its location are split into 2 parts, like a trans warp key. And the other part, besides the stone tablet, is somewhere in Venice, Italy, in the tomb of that final crusader.
Oh, yeah.
Donovan wants Indy to look into it because his top researcher has vanished. Also, his top researcher was Indy's deadbeat dad.
Watch where you're swinging that.
That's a grail! Holy shit, donkey! Is that a good Sean Connery? Can we find the grail that Jesus drank from and then bled into? Sean Connery, he's the one who found the grail.
I'll take the rapists for 200.
Andy's dad had already mailed him his grail diary before Daddy's apartment was trashed, so Andy's like, well, let's go get some spaghetti! He travels to Italy with his best bud, who's probably 30 years older than he is, and upon arrival, they acquire a new slave child, short round replacement looking kid, and meet a new sexy German lady,
Dr. Elsa Schneider,
who Andy immediately pokes with flowers in an attempt to poke her with his damaged sex organs. They end up at a library, and Andy is immediately like, screw books! The tomb is in the library, like in the floor, which used to be a church. You idiots!
You disgust everyone.
He believes this so strongly, he destroys the floor, revealing an underground passage,
Bingo,
which he drops Elsa and himself into. And almost immediately, dudes with silly little hats and guns show up.
Look at all your different colored hats.
And clobber Indy's, old ass buddy, who I guess his name Marcus. In the tunnel itself, Indy bodies a wall down and realizes the whole place is full of petroleum. Also rats.
Oh, rats.
Get it! Woo! Also, not to be gross, but there is a lot of blowing in this movie. They find the casket and realize the dude's shield has the rest of the information of the Grail's location on it, and at that moment, the silly hat boy set fire to all the petroleum, forcing Indy and Elsa to flip the casket and hide underneath, desecrating yet another body in his historically significant catacomb. This buys them enough time to find an escape route and pop out of the sewer like Dave after a bender. The silly hats aren't far behind, so we now get a boat chase, which results in one exploded boat and one hostage who tells them that he's part of the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword or some shit. And also, Indy's dad is being held in a castle, which is actually kind of fun. I mean, of all the places to be held in, a castle is like a top 3 location alongside Julianne Moore's bedroom and an adults-only Chuck E. Cheese.
Games and sauce, games and sauce.
Andy makes a pit stop at his Venetian apartment to sort out where the Grail is located, now that they have all the info. And he also wonders at his room having been trashed by some bad guys, and he gets his ear sucked by Elsa. Because this is now a James Bond movie.
Like women.
Mangled genitalia and all. Now we're at Castle Daddy! And Indy tries to sneak in with an incredibly thick Scottish brogue. But the butler's unbelievably massive nose sniffs him out, so he punches him unconscious. As it turns out, this castle, like Whitefish, Montana, has a bunch of Nazis in it.
Hail Trump! Hail our people!
Hell no!
One interesting thing about this movie is how much it hates Nazis, which I assume at the time must have honestly felt kind of quaint.
Nazis. I hate these guys.
But all of a sudden it feels weirdly kind of bold because Nazis are back. Yay!
All differences forgotten and no need at all to mention the war.
Sorry! That's when Indy starts whipping his dick around. Eventually finding his dad, Henry Jones, played by a clearly having fun Sean Connery, rest in peace. Is he dead? He's dead. Nazis walk in, so Indy massacres them, which again is the only correct response. They stumble into a room where Elsa's being held hostage, and Henry's like, yeah, she's a Nazi. And Indy is like, counterpoint, boobs.
Boobies.
But it turns out they're both right, and she betrays them and steals the diary.
You should have listened to your father.
That's not what your mother said last night.
Also, there's a fun reveal here that young Jones got his father's sloppy seconds. Fun! Sloppy! Oh, and double twist, Donovan has betrayed them too, but Indy already ripped the map out of the diary and he gave it to Marcus, so Nazis will only get so much value from this diary, except those shits. Marcus literally walks right onto a Nazi truck. That's not a good idea. No matter, the Jones boys get tied up and Elsa sucks Indy a bit more. Woo! Before Henry accidentally sets the whole damn room on fire.
Dad! What? Dad! What?
Forcing Indy to improvise and escape via a spinning secret fireplace door Nazi battle. They run away and find themselves in a dead end, but no matter, there's a secret staircase. Truly, this castle is the most fun, non-bouncy castle in the world. So many secrets! So many Nazis.
Hi Hitler.
Heil Hitler.
Heil Hitler.
Heil Hitler. Heil Hitler.
Is that fun? Maybe in Whitefish, Montana.
Oh, hell no.
Outside, Indy makes it look like they escape on a boat when actually they've stolen a motorcycle, but he doesn't wait nearly long enough for the Nazis to actually chase the boat. So we still get a motorcycle chase scene that's mostly notable for this dude getting straight a knight's tale. Also, this bike flips all the shit. Daddy is not impressed. Daddy is not impressed. They must now decide whether to literally drive to Berlin to try and steal back the diary that has some clues about how to get through all the booby traps that are guarding the ground. You know, because while Jesus was a carpenter, what he primarily built were booby traps.
Blessed are the peacemakers.
And there's reason to believe that the theme of the traps will be that only true Christians can pass without being dismembered, you know, like the front door at Chick-fil-A. So without the diary, these sinners would probably be screwed.
What about Marcus?
But the other option is they could head to Venice to free their mutual long-standing friend and get back the map.
Marcus would agree with me.
They choose Berlin. Guess they just leave their friend to rot in a German prison. I am not sure if that's what Jesus would do.
Let he who is without sin kick the first ass.
In Berlin, they encounter a book burning, which, hey, we're doing stuff like that again now too. Fun! And one of the books is even very clearly Das Kapital. Is that how you say it?
Das Kapital?
Capital? Is it Spanish?
Muy bien.
What a weirdly prescient film. Andy, dressed as a Nazi, I mean without a MAGA hat, but you know, mostly like a Nazi, runs into Elsa
I want it.
and takes back the diary because she's sad about all the book burning. Oh, poor Nazi! He also runs into Hitler, who signs his diary for him, which is played as a joke. But did Hitler routinely sign officers' books at a book burning?
No way.
What a confusing juxtaposition.
Yes. No.
You know, if Indy had the balls to just shoot Hitler in the balls right now, that would have really helped the world.
I'm a fat pig.
But alas, instead, he and Daddy bugger off in a Nazi blimp.
Made it.
Of course, they're quickly found out. First, Indy's dad is found out to be a shitty dad.
We never
But then also, the Nazis find out that they're not Nazis, so they have to escape in the blimp's escape plane. And they're confronted by Nazi fighters who don't hit them a single time, but Henry friendly fires their own plane down anyway.
They got us.
They crash land and steal some dude's car and inexplicably bait a plane into flying into a tunnel to its death. Like, how stupid is that fighter pilot? What did you think was gonna happen if he aimed right at the mountain? But then their car gets bombed, so Henry kills the other plane with a bunch of seagulls that he clucks into the air with his umbrella.
Mine.
So I guess neither of those guys were the Red Baron, or even really Snoopy. Then they reunite with Digger Boy and have somehow traveled to wherever Marcus is, which just so happens to be in a convoy that includes a tank. They move in at the same time as a bunch of friends of the Triforce or whatever, and the Triforcers get their shit completely rocked. Which is kind of embarrassing for a 1,000-year-old organization. Defeated by Indy, defeated by Nazis. You had one job to do. Protect the the location of the Grail or whatever. Come on.
I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about any of this.
Now there's another one of these classic action sequences where Indy fights a tank with a horse. And Henry just hops in the tank where Marcus is being held. The tank crashes into its own dudes at one point. It gets a gun plugged with a rock. It just generally has a rough go of it. Eventually, Indy boards the tank, kills 3 Nazis with 1 bullet, whips his dad's dick, and ultimately Thelma and Louises the whole thing off a cliff. Everybody thinks Indy is dead, but he isn't.
What a twist!
They hug and then head to the whatever to get the Grail, and the Nazis are already there and having a bad time. They capture Indy and Daddy and shoot Daddy in the tummy and say, if you want him to live, you gotta go get that Grail. So Indy heads toward the first trap, armed with only the first clue that only the penitent man will pass. He knows this is some sort of dope biblical riddle because true faith makes you better at solving riddles. And Indy, at the last possible second, realizes he must literally kneel down before God and do a kick-ass somersault. So the first blade makes sense, right? Because this is the reason all the non-kneeling heretics, like the previous Middle Easterners, were neatly decapitated. And that makes sense, but then what's up with the floor blade? Why would a penitent man also need to be a skilled tumbler? Is the 11th commandment that one must become an expert in P90X to gain the stamina to get out there and make disciples of all nations?
Right, left, up to Jesus.
Most importantly, how the heck did Indy even know that there was a second blade in the first place?
This one was invented by a writer.
Interestingly, it appears he would have been just fine if he just remained kneeling. Right? Like the second blade would whip in front of him close enough to give his pubes a decent trim.
Your balls can be like these.
But in theory, it wouldn't harm anything besides his dignity. And even if it did mangle his dangle, it's already pre-mangled. Not really risking much. So what's the point of it? Well, let me put it this way. If your idea of being penitent before God looks like this, you'll be fine. But if it looks like this, you're dead. That blade will lop your head off. It's strange, but it makes perfect sense given the title of the film and the fact that, remember, the ancient knights protecting the Grail are from the First Crusade. That is, a war to retake the Holy Land from Muslims. These crusaders were forward-thinking enough to ensure that only true Christians would get through.
I brought my Bible.
And that intruding Muslims would be killed on the spot. Wait. Even if they figured out the first part of the riddle. Classic bigoted knight move. Then the second trap requires walking in the name of God, like that glass bridge scene in Squid Game. He correctly deduces this means he has to hop on squares that spell out Jehovah. But my guy, God has so many names.
They call me hell. They call me
In fact, even Jehovah in this instance apparently begins with an I. So Indy almost dies when he guesses it's a J. But he figures it out and ends up staring into a seemingly bridgeless chasm with kind of shitty green screen effects. But hey, props to Jesus for figuring out this technology like 2,000 years ago. Indy realizes he needs to step out in faith, so he does, and thankfully he finds footing on a bridge that appeared invisible thanks to an elaborate optical illusion that would only work with a person of a very specific height standing in one very specific place.
Illusion, Michael. Trick is something a whore does for money.
Finally, he arrives at the Grail room to find an old knight reading a Bible, which must have gotten really boring after 700 years.
I brought my Bible.
And who wants to bet that the margins of that thing are filled with doodles of like snails eating spaghetti or other crazy shit. The knight attacks, but is weak as hell because, 700 years. It's kind of interesting, though, that the Grail will keep you alive, but it won't necessarily give you killer Jesus-like abs.
Rock me, sexy Jesus.
He's apparently been waiting for another knight to come kill and replace him, but Indy is like, nah, dude, it's all good. Then the Nazis walk in and the knight is like, you gotta pick the right cup, and let me tell you, there are enough cups here to film like 30 insanity-inducing weird fetish videos, provided you have access to twice as many girls. And Donovan is like, Elsa, can you pick one? Because I failed AP history. And she hands him a shiny one and he's like, sick, this looks great. But then when he drinks from it, he appears to instantly age 700 years into the Crypt Keeper's older brother, Maurice. Let me tell you, he looks rough. Elsa and Indy both agree the Grail would be a pretty basic wooden cup, and Indy drinks from it, and he's fine, and the knight is like, sick, great choice. But by the way, you can't take this out of the temple. And Indy is like, yeah, sure, whatever, and goes to heal his daddy's wounded tummy. And like, are Indy and Daddy immortal now? Or at least has their life been significantly extended? Is that why Harrison Ford is choosing to make a 5th movie at the ripe old age of 80. He's got that grail hubris. Speaking of, Elsa grabs the cup and is like, hey, we should leave the temple with this. And Indy is like, that's literally the one thing the old ass knight said not to do. And she's like, LOL, LMAO, etc. But then the temple starts collapsing and she falls in a newly developed hole, and Indy is saved by his dad, who advises him to chill on trying to get the whole grail thing. And the knight looks on all this like, WTF? Like, what's the point of me staying alive for 700 years if the first other people to find it immediately drop in a literally goddamned hole within seconds? Oh well, LOL, LMAO, etc. I guess I could finally die now. What a freaking bummer of like a life. What the f*** are you guys doing? Like, what is he even doing? Like, what was his hope? Also, if you can't take the grail out of the temple anyway without it collapsing on you, why do you need to guard it in the first place? Also, if you're weak as shit, why do you need to guard it? Like, he literally, what is his life's purpose? He achieves nothing. And then the first guy that comes in is like, chugs from the wrong one, and then a Nazi runs away with it and dies, and it falls in a hole, and he's like, you think God's gonna be mad? Jesus is like, dude, my cup! What the heck, dude?
One job.
Literally, you've been reading for forever.
I should have got you a book called How to Guard It.
Oh, so by the way, Christian God definitely confirmed now alongside Jewish God and Hindu gods, and this is a major development. Will the world be forever altered? I ask again. Probably not, I say again.
Yes. No.
Although apparently Indiana's real name is Henry, as in Henry Jones Jr., but he goes by Indiana because that was the dog's name growing up. Isn't it weird that this movie gave us the origins to basically every single aspect of Indiana Jones, but instead of feeling like useless fan service, it's actually kind of fun? I wonder why that is. Like, seriously, this is a serious moment of pondering. Okay, enough of that. Dick joke, fart noise, burp, Dave's mom.
Hope we didn't wake you. Your mother's a screamer.
Just kidding. I'm not going to cover all 28 episodes and 4 TV films of that show because even I have limits, but it's pretty good. At least 9-year-old me liked it. It was also nominated for 18 Emmys, winning 6, so I don't know. Watch it if you want. I don't care. I'm not going to watch it. I'm probably dead now. Probably sweat my ass out my mouth.
Climb in this fridge.
No, dude, I'm not getting in a fridge.
Do it, dude. It's the only way to be safe.
I don't want to get in a fridge. You friggin' alien.
Fine.
Didn't get me.
Frick.
Okay, well, firstly, we start with Lucasfilm, which is some bullshit. But thankfully, it's not long until the Paramount logo becomes a gopher mound. And I am super excited for somebody in the comments to have already watched like an hour of this video, but still feels the need to point out that this is actually a prairie dog or a shaved porcupine or their cousin Stephanie. It doesn't matter, because that is flattened by some joyriding young people who convinced the world's friendliest military convoy drivers to race them. Oops, not that friendly. Because they arrive at a 1957 Nevada military base and murder everybody at the checkpoint. They pull a portly fellow out of the trunk. Hello! And also, yeah, Indiana Jones. They evidently caught digging in Mexico.
Muy bien!
Probably trying to find affordable health care.
Not as easy as it used to be.
These mean soldiers are actually mean
Russians.
and they've brought Indy along to help them find a specific box in this Area 51 warehouse of secrets that we saw in the first film.
Yeah, when?
The first film.
The comrades are led by a sort of androgynous female named Iriana Spalko, who is super into psychic and paranormal stuff. She even maybe literally attempts to mind read Indy, but like her haircut, it just doesn't work. She also has a sword, because that's cool, right? Swords. Wow. Indy is pretty quickly like, sure, I'll help, why not? Slow day down at the archaeologist's office, so he hucks some gunpowder in the air, which will presumably lead to the magnetic box they're looking for. They open the box and Spalko pops a sword boner, and there appears to be a body in there. Well, I mean, either that or a body-shaped granola bar based on the wrapper. In either case, I take a bite out of it because I've been filming this video for what feels like 5 years now, and I'm starving and I'm thirsty, and Dave has proven much too quick and cunning for me to catch. Indy makes an escape move, but his portly friend Mac betrays him because
I'm a capitalist.
It's called capitalism.
And Indy, by no contrast at all, says,
I like Ike.
Got him. But then he throws his gun and then runs away and whips around and hijacks a truck and then hops into another car and then crashes a bunch of cars together, which he then escapes into the rafters. before falling through a glass thing and activating a countdown. Tries to get a Russian to suck him before the two of them shoot off on a rocket into the desert while groundhogs watch and the Ark of the Covenant falls over. You know, a latter-day Indiana Jones action sequence.
You got it, pal.
Indy hides from the Russians all night long and in the morning sneaks into a town full of dummies. No, I don't mean Whitefish, Montana.
A white supremacist and a leader in the so-called alt-right movement has made Whitefish a home in recent years.
I mean one of those nuclear testing towns they used to blow in the 50s to see if nuclear bombs really did as much damage as all those Japanese people keep saying they do. I'll believe it when I see it.
You have a 12-month head start. 18.
Oh, and they're gonna test a nuke here in like 60 seconds, and Indy tries to catch a ride with some kindly Russian soldiers. But they leave him behind and he is super pissed at them.
You're great, don't wait for me!
You know, because they've been so friendly to this point. But actually works out because Indiana Jones hides in a refrigerator and survives the nuclear blast in a scene that is universally celebrated and nobody ever mentions negatively.
You're embarrassing us.
By contrast, the Russians explode and Indy just sort of gazes at the nuclear cloud as if to say, wow, I bet radiation isn't even real. Isn't life beautiful?
Unlike the final days of Cybertron.
But no, cut to them literally scrubbing radiation off his 60-something penis, which by now, let's be honest, must be barely hanging on by a pube.
Hang on, little buddy!
Before being interrogated by the janitor from Scrubs. The janitor is like, hey, Max sucks, which means you might suck by association. But another guy comes in and is like, the only thing Indy sucks is freedom from the teats of Lady Liberty. And they're like, gross, he can go. But unfortunately, he's put on an indefinite leave of absence by his college or university or whatever because communists are gross.
What?
Also, plot twist, his dad and Marcus are dead, and he has a new old man friend named something, probably.
Mr. F.
Indy decides to take a vacation, but before his train leaves, a greasy leather daddy shows up and yells at him about how some bad people are gonna kill some archaeologist guy named Ox that Indy apparently knows.
Oh, is there such a thing?
So they head to a diner to talk about it some more, and the dude is like, my name is Mutt, and I'm played by long story shortish's favorite actor, Sheila B. And the aforementioned Ox is in like Peru, which is our favorite country, I guess.
I'm really excited to go to Peru.
And he maybe found a thing called a crystal skull, and he's headed to El Dorado because, as you know, whoever returns the skull to the temple there gets to wield its power. Also, my mom knows you and has been captured as well, and she sent me this letter with a bunch of squiggly nonsense on it. Can you decipher it? And Indy is like, that's all interesting and all.
But it wasn't.
These guys walking up right now are
KGB.
And you should punch a jock and start a real grease lightning battle so he can run away. And as they run, Indy says something like, I bet they let your mom escape so you could
Give me this information and then they'd catch me and force me to decipher it, which is an
Interesting theory.
It wasn't.
But they already know where Indy works and stuff. What the heck do they need Mutt for? It's like a couple extra steps too many. Also, why couldn't his mom escape all on her own? Because she's a woman? Wow! Sexist much, Indy? Women's rights!
That's my boyfriend!
They escape on a motorcycle, and there's just this weird, surreal fuzziness to the movie. Like, it looks like a dream. Nothing feels real or grounded.
Is it real? I don't know. Ask him.
This is why I don't look at a lot of my movies after I've made them.
Colors are too bright and the lights are too direct. It's a weird movie to look at. Anyway, per usual, Indy jumps in and out of moving cars until the bad guys crash so hard they decapitate poor dead Marcus. Hello! Indy finally sits down and deciphers the squiggles and decides
it's a riddle,
telling them to go to Peru. So guess where they go?
China.
No, silly. Ellos van a ir a Peru.
Muy bien.
My daughter loves Dora the Explorer, even though she's only seen the show like twice. And I have to tell her a bedtime story with Dora in it every night, but Swiper better be in it, damn it, or it's a bad story.
Oh, man.
So I usually just end up recapping episodes of Game of Thrones for her, with Swiper obviously standing in for Joffrey.
Swiper, no swiping.
Swiper, no!
In Peru, Indy and Mutt share some backstory together.
I love reading.
Indy apparently rode with Pancho Villa.
Pancho Villa.
And Mutt apparently dropped out of high school.
You quit school?
Oh yeah, sure, tons of them.
But not before learning Chekhov's fencing.
And I'm great with a blade, I just think it's a waste of time.
Wonder if that'll come up. Again. They go to an insane asylum where Ox was locked up before dudes with guns took him, and they mostly find what appears to be a swear word written everywhere. This makes Mutt very sad. And Indy is like, calm down, Mutt. It's not a swear word. It's the word return in a bunch of languages.
Muy bien!
And it means they need to find the tomb of some conquistador who also tried to find El Dorado, because man, that Road to El Dorado movie from a few years ago was a lot of fun.
Visit your wrath upon this non-believer.
Thankfully, Ox wrote a map quest on the ground. They go to dig up Dora's great-grandfather, but oh no, they're attacked by martial arts zombies. Unfortunately, Indy blows them better than they blow him.
Oh my.
And grabs a skull like he's grabbing a bowling ball to reveal a secret bonus tomb. Mutt gets Scorpion, but it doesn't matter, and I don't believe comes up again in the movie. It's just an excuse to say a fun Scorpion fact for people that don't know many fun Scorpion facts.
Comes to scorpions, the bigger the better. Small one bites you. Don't keep it to yourself.
Oh.
In the tomb itself is a delightful Mayan seesaw device. Who said everything's gotta be a booby trap? Why not a couple of booby fun things? Playthings, seesaw boobies.
Boobies.
They find the mummified bodies and they get right in there. Like, can you get diseases from playing with bodies? Like, Dave, do you have any diseases from playing with dead bodies?
Swiper, no swiping!
Sorry.
And he finds a dope-ass dagger, but then puts it back. Why did he find it if he's just gonna put it back? And then he finds a golden masked mummy with a
Lust for gold.
And yeah, a weird ass crystal skull that's magnetic. But not just with normal metal, also with gold.
Magnets.
And he thinks the craftsmanship required to make this skull is basically impossible for modern humans, and doubly so for
Indian.
Which I googled it, so it might be fine, but it still feels out of place. Call them, Charles. They have names.
They got to squabbling amongst themselves.
They think Ox must have found the skull, taken it to El Dorado, then brought it back because, well, it's the Christian thing to do. And we already know that the Christian God is real. And I mean, I assume the Jewish God likes it, and the Hindu gods probably like it. So, just do all the moral things that anyone has ever said to do, and you'll be
In rainbows.
Then they're grabbed by Russian/Mac because twist, they followed him. Also, seriously, nothing in this movie looks real. Anyway, Indy is tied up and Spalko walks in and immediately drops an Oppenheimer spoiler like,
Now I am become death, the destroyer of...
Good grief, lady.
It was your own Dr. Oppenheimer.
Then she says, all right, I'm trying to build a mind weapon, right? And El Dorado was built by aliens, of course, and their crystal skulls open up extra parts of your brain, of course, and the box the Russians grabbed from the warehouse earlier had an alien body in it and not a granola bar, of course. Whopper. And also Ox is here and he's crazy as shit. And Indy needs to interpret his rambling since he's the only one that knows how to get to El Dorado. Of course. But he can't just interpret. Indy needs to stare deeply into the skull's hard, sexy eyes in the hopes that it'll break his brain just a little bit.
You clearly have a learning disability, dude.
But not as much as Ox's. Apparently Spalko tried this already, but the skull doesn't talk to just anybody. Maybe it just doesn't talk to women. Ruh-roh. Misogynist aliens would be both a shocking reveal and probably something George Lucas has been dreaming about for decades.
I want you to get out of this office right now.
Indy agrees because, well, there's really nothing he won't do. Just an agreeable, helpful guy, this fella.
How fortunate.
He looks and then wigs out and then they stop doing it and he's like, okay, but I'm not gonna help now.
Yet.
I don't know why. And then the Russians drag Marion out of a tent and are like, surprise legacy character return. Also, this is Mutt's mom.
Sweetheart.
Mom.
So Indy is like, damn, this is why I just always agree to stuff on the first try. And he realizes crazy ass Ox is pantomiming writing.
Take it, baby. Meet at later bar, night or day sometime.
So they shove some paper in his face, but not gonna lie, his drawing, it's kind of shit. But it's enough because...
Wavy lines mean water, of course.
And also...
Great snakes, the Amazon, of course.
And this huge dick represents my huge dick, of course. And this drawing of a helicopter is me helicoptering my huge penis to the top of a Peruvian pyramid, of course. And really, it's all spelled out as plain as day, of course. But we need to add another 10 minutes to the runtime or George gets grumpy.
Then I got your voucher.
So Mutt punches people and sets a fire and they run into the jungle to get stuck in quicksand for a minute until Mutt pulls them out and the Russians capture them again, of course. So now they're bulldozing the Amazon. Marion and Indy do a little anger exposition to explain that Indy left her
a week before the wedding.
And that Mutt is actually named Henry and is Indy's little bastard. And also kicked. And oh right, Indy named himself after the family dog, so that would make his bastard son a mutt. They undo their ropes and hijack yet another truck. Man, is any truck safe from Indy's hijacking hijinks? I think not.
Yeah, you best get to stepping because Johnny Laws are coming.
Then Indy shoots a rocket launcher to kill a bunch of Russians, which is very Ukrainian of him. And then they all hop into a new car and people really just be switching vehicles nonstop for the next 10 minutes or so. Other developments include Matt claiming, I'm CIA! So actually he's a good guy because the CIA has never done a single evil thing, especially when trying to stick it to Russians. And Mutt and Spalko have a little fencing match.
It's not a match, Bomber!
With Mutt going about 80% Van Damme.
I've had my ups and downs.
And Marion gets hilariously brained for no reason.
Okay, love is dead.
And there's some god-awful karate. And Mutt swinging through the vines with a monkey army like Caesar from Planet of the Apes. No! And finally, a bunch of cars crashing into a dangerous ant field. Well, hell yeah! Now I know this is gonna be a great movie. Great movies have tons of ants. Ask Ant-Man 3. They're attacked by the ants, but these aren't your grandpa's ants. Ah! These are scary ants.
I am?
Ants that will like totally eat you. It's like a reverse picnic or some shit.
Are you sure it's okay for us to be out here?
Oh, look! Here they are combining like World War Gen Z zombies. And as it turns out, ants don't love Crystal Skull, which like audiences agreed. And so these two old men are free to just slug each other like 300 times. I mean, God, I just love old men slapping away. This is way better than Lemon Party, right, Dave?
And insert clip there. That's a good B-roll.
Yeah, so then we'll go to Lemon Party. Just really any clip. Eventually, the Russian dude is eaten by ants. Then Marion drunk drives everybody off a cliff. Because her car is also a bunk. Then they go over exactly 3 waterfalls. After they wash ashore, Indy's like, I gotta return the skull because they told them to while he stared lustfully into their crystal eyes, I guess. So they open waterfall number 3 to find some torches.
This is fresh.
That were recently used, but also thoughtfully returned. Then Indy explains why everything is so sticky and gross.
Someone came.
Okay, well that's disgusting.
Someone came.
I get it! Good grief! Also, there are alien paintings everywhere suggesting the aliens taught ancient Mayans about farming and trickle-down economics. I guess it didn't work out for them either, huh? Subsidizing the rich, that's why the Mayans died.
You won't like it.
They're followed, again, by some freaky Indians, and they run into a Machu Picchu-looking valley, and they're all caught with hillbilly golf balls. But Indians, like ants and my 5-month-old, are absolutely terrified of crystal skulls. By the way, Spalko is still tracking them because Mac actually does still suck. Oh no!
Well, we've been through worse.
They climb to the top of the temple and start smacking shit until some disappearing stairs open. And then they run down like so fast. This is yet another booby trap that largely relies on nimbleness. So what, old people aren't allowed to go into freaky alien temples? Coming summer 2008, ableist aliens, alien uprising, right?
Yeah, when?
They find a bunch of ancient artifacts from all over the world because aliens are
archaeologists.
And also, aliens are British, maybe, given all the stuff they took. And eventually they end up in an alien throne room thing, and Spalko shows up and is like, these aliens, for sure, have a collective consciousness despite individual penises.
They are a hive mind.
He seems quite well endowed. And she slaps the skull back onto one of the decapitated aliens' bodies, and Ox starts speaking Mayan, and everything starts spinning and collapsing, and then Ox starts speaking English because most of the audience knows that one better and is like, hey, I need to make it very clear that these aren't space aliens, they are
interdimensional beings in point of fact.
Because that distinction is really important to Indiana Jones fans in 2008. And then a thing they call an interdimensional portal opens up and starts sucking all the NPCs. And Spalko keeps saying, I want to know. No, wait, she's Russian. I want to know Hello, it is me, Spalko. I want to know.
You're not from around here, are you?
So the aliens combine into one dude. He seems quite well endowed. Who melts her eyeballs and explodes her, which rude. Misogynist aliens confirmed.
Would you let me date your daughter? Of course!
Then Matt gets sucked up and he said,
I'm gonna be alright.
Which, will he be alright? How does he know that?
He's lost his left hand, so he's going to be all right.
You son of a bitch!
The main characters escape and watch as a UFO rises up from the temple and flies away. So it wasn't a portal then, right? The thing they called a portal was just like a door, yeah? Into the ship? No, actually, because again, they're not going to space. They're going to the space between spaces. Obviously.
The space between
rainbows. Finally, a movie for intellectual English majors like me that know that there's a space between the space, and that's where the aliens with the collective consciousness but the separate bodies go. Come on.
But it wasn't.
Then Indy and Marion get married for real, and Mutt watches them kiss while licking his own lips. And then Indy's hat blows over to Mutt's feet, but when he picks it up, Indy is like, nah, bitch! That's why Shia LaBeouf never took up the mantle. Sorry.
No!
Alright, that's enough. I'm getting out of this temple. I'm going to jump into this pool of water that will take me to the space between spaces.
Wow.
Whoa! I must be in ancient Greece because somebody left the globe on right to it. Oh my god! Oh, but am I in a jail cell?
Oh yeah, it's a jail cell for sure in Greece, and I'm Zeus, and I want you to recap the 5th Indiana Jones movie, or you'll be trapped here in Greece with literally 0 Xboxes.
No! Anyway, so the movie actually opens with a production logo claiming that Disney is 100. I think I hit that a little hard.
I'm proud as a peacock, baby.
Feels a little cringe, especially with all the strikes. Then we hear ticking and war sounds, and we see Nazis, which is definitely cringe.
Are you still a Nazi?
Is there anything lamer than being a Nazi? Dave, do you feel lame? He shakes his head. He doesn't feel lame. He's proud of it.
Sorry.
The year is 19, end of World War II, and Polar Express Indiana Jones has been captured, and his face is odd. Sometimes it looks amazing, but when action occurs, his face never makes the appropriate expression. It's like things are exploding. He's like... It's weird. It's creepy. I don't understand why they keep doing this. I mean, River Phoenix was great as Indiana, and the dude in Solo was great as Harrison Ford. Just do that.
That's okay.
Stop doing this. I hate this.
I would think about climbing on board.
That nipple just wants to see the sun. The ancient Grecian sun.
We're going to Greece.
Oh, yeah?
Speaking of things I hate, the Nazis are loading a bunch of artifacts onto a train, but then Mads Mikkelsen shows up as a Nazi, which is conflicting because Mads is just the coolest.
He's an extremely nice man. And he's an extremely good
cocksucker.
This film is dangerous. Kids are gonna start thinking that being a Nazi is rad. Like you're gonna get to hang out with Mads if you become one. We need a Saving Private Ryan sequel with Kevin Spacey as Hitler, just, to cleanse the palate. Okay, sorry. So everybody's excited about this Holy Lance thing that Jesus' side was apparently pierced with and drew blood after he died, and that's why Indy is here, and that's why Mads is here, but they're gonna hang Plastic Indy to death, except then a bomb drops through the floor and explodes everything, allowing Indy to escape. Unfortunately, Indy's got a new silly old man friend, because really, can we have an Indy movie without a silly old man friend? And he's been captured! Sorry! And also, ironically, that actor played a Nazi in Captain America, because, I mean, who hasn't played a Nazi?
Am I right?
Sorry I'm harping on the Nazi thing. I just think they're bad.
It disagrees with me.
And this is YouTube, and I'm slightly worried that somebody watching might disagree. Like, I could see Dave shaking his head right now.
Sorry.
Anyway, Indy steals a car, but only for a second, because Indy has never finished a drive in the vehicle he started with, and he ends up hijacking a motorcycle. Like, I'm telling you, Indy leaves for Whole Foods in a Mazda and returns in a tank. He takes that tank to Burger King, and he comes back with a tricycle.
Whopper, whopper, whopper.
This makes property taxes very difficult for Indiana. That's why he has to keep stealing artifacts to pay for his taxes.
Fortune and glory, kid.
Eventually, he boards the train of antiquities that houses the Lance and also his silly old man friend Baz. Baz, and he quickly finds the lance, but oh no, it's a fake! Sorry! This is also something that Mads has determined, but he tells the train's top Nazi, the Topsy, that it's all good because actually there's something even better on the train. Archimedes' dial.
A dial.
Or at least half of it. What a fool!
This is only half.
Dial.
But if he got the whole dial, what's cool is that it tracks
anal fissures
in time and could presumably be used to travel back in time to before Hitler was pounding amphetamines and drinking cow jizz and help them win the war.
That's a real thing.
But the Topsy isn't super interested. But Indy and Baz are, and they punch out Mads and grab the half of the key thing that he was holding on to. Oh, my nipples. They work to escape the train and are aided immensely by some Allied fighter planes that manage to jam a machine gun in oscillating mega kill mode, which massacres like 40 Nazis hanging off the side of a train, which is way better than what my fan does. No Nazis die because of my fan. Somehow, though, the Topsy sneaks ahead of Baz and Indy and pulls a knife because he apparently forgot about his pistol. But then, oh wait, right, I do have a pistol. And it gets whipped to the ground by 50 Shades of Archaeology.
Punish me.
And Baz scoops it up. Well, first he accidentally shoots Indy. Whoops!
Whoopsie.
But then he confidently blows Topsy away. Mads, who has apparently woken up from his little nap, shows up with a gun of his own because obviously everybody has guns. This is a war. He takes the half of the dial back, but then he gets absolutely f***ing brained by like a water tower or something. And then Baz and Indy jump off the train into some water of their own. And hey, didn't Indiana serve in World War II? Why was he allowed to gallivant so much? Did everybody in the army have a certain allotment of gallivanting days? I could use a gallivanting day. Fast forward to 1969, and a shirtless Indy proves that that man can still get it. He also grabs a bat to go yell at some kids, but they're like, A, I'm calling your bluff. I don't think you're about to attempted murder this early in the morning. And B, it's Moon Day.
We really shouldn't waste it.
As in, we just landed on the moon, so chill out, you old codger, and worship the moon with us pagans. Indy heads upstairs and pours alcohol in his coffee to signify that he's one of those sad old men trapped in a Legacy sequel.
Why are you making it complicated?
And also that he's one bad day from becoming a subway flasher. And sure enough, he has papers of separation from Marion just sitting around.
I was a child.
Indy staggers to work where nobody, gay or straight, be giving him apples. Ugh.
Gay!
And it turns out he's about to retire because of it. By contrast, Mads is not only still alive with a shockingly intact face, he's the guy who I guess built the rocket to the moon.
Have we met?
He's also a little racist because while you can take the Nazi out of Germany, it turns out that Nazism is actually worse in America these days. He's somehow confusingly spying on Indy with the help of the CIA, which doesn't really make sense, except that the CIA lady says it's because he helped them build a rocket. So I guess he can use the CIA resources to try and find antique treasures and shit. Like, man, I guess I need to build a rocket. Maybe I can finally get some quality camera help for once. I'm sure any CIA idiot could do Dave's job.
But he's also annoying. Just have to say that.
And what is Indy doing? Why, he's reuniting with his long-lost granddaughter who created one of the greatest TV shows of all time.
I think someone's trying to quit.
Show ran another banger. But has otherwise inexplicably chosen to flit in and around big legacy franchise crap.
When are you gonna stop bringing that up? When you do something better?
Next up is Tomb Raider? Friggin' why?
I hate myself.
Also, more specifically to this story, she's searching for the dial, just like her daddy Baz. And like, would you happen to know where daddy's half of the dial went, God Daddy? Because as you know, Archimedes broke his dial into two like the Coca-Cola recipe, and Indy's like, well, as you know, this drove your father completely insane. Sorry. But sure, whatever, here it is in my storage area, but then, oh, shit. Mads men and the CIA lady attack.
Don't move.
And the Mads guys massacre teachers, and the CIA lady is like a little upset, but not like upset, just sort of like, well, he did build the rocket. So, what's a few professors?
Part-time.
The goddaughter, who also answers to Wombat, grabs the dial and runs away because she's hoping to sell it at a Turkish Antiques Roadshow in a few days, and then is like, damn, I'm in a tight spot. Damn. But no matter, the famed history lover makes his escape by kicking over a shelf and essentially destroying every single archaeological artifact in the entire building.
All your life has been spent in pursuit of archaeological relics.
Whoopsie.
Allowing himself like, maybe an additional 38 seconds of freedom before he's still grabbed anyway and thrown in the back of a van. Of course, it is Moon Day. So there's a Moon Day parade, meaning they're gonna have to stop the van and go the rest of the way on foot. But of course, Indy is still quite fleet of his foot, and he runs away and steals a police horse so we can have a little motorcycle versus equine chase scene through a parade, and I'm shocked he's not getting shot at by the other police. Yeah. Or that none of them are getting shot at. Is there no security at this parade? JFK has already been assassinated, right? You can't just ride horses and motorcycles through parades. I don't care how lunar-centric the festivities.
You'll give us so much extra space in our room to do activities.
Eventually, their chase moves underground, and Indy turns the horse into a Subway horse, which makes sense, given that all Subway meat is in fact horse meat.
This new sub tastes incredible. This is gonna be huge.
And he ultimately escapes his pursuers by regular Subway train, which makes sense because nothing goes faster than Subway out Dave's butthole.
This is gonna be huge.
He goes to hide out at, hey, Digger Guy's house because Indy helped him and his family immigrate.
Perhaps.
After the fall of the mines of Moria because, yes, I just realized this guy is also Gimli.
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with
John Cena? Perhaps not.
Indy determines he needs to go catch Wombat and or the Dial because, as is, he's currently wanted for the murder of those two professors.
Part-time.
Not sure why anybody would realistically believe that he just snapped like that, especially considering all the overwhelming evidence of him getting chased all over New York City, but I guess the CIA is working against him, so whatever. Now he's at a sexy Moroccan hotel, and he looks like he's trying to be inconspicuous, but let me tell you, that hat is about as conspicuous as it gets. Especially if he's trying to hide from his goddaughter, who knows literally everything about him, including his big-ass hat.
It's called capitalism.
Speaking of, she's actively auctioning off the Dial with the help of her own little short round. How fun that she also has one of those. I want one, Dave. Give me a short round. That'd be so... No, not your penis, Dave. Good callback, but gross.
This is gonna be huge.
The auction quickly devolves into a fight when Indy shows up, and it lasts so long that by the time it spills outdoors, it's a whole new day. Unfortunately, Mads was there with his goons too.
You're confused. My name is
And he's the one currently holding the MacGuffin in the elevated game of Schmear the historically disenfranchised person. We said a lot of crazy stuff as kids, huh?
Are you gay?
Before they can whole-ass pursue Mads, a Moroccan gangster drives up and is like, Wombat, I'm pissed that we got engaged, and yet you continually spurn my advances. And I guess you won't set a date for the wedding and stuff. And she calls him a bitch, I think, and escapes with Short Round Jr., and Indy chases her, and it's all quite silly.
Elena, no!
I've probably mentioned this before, but I'm totally fine with movies just giving up on chase scenes for a while. I think we've done pretty much all we can. We peaked with The Raid 2. Let's give it a decade rest and see if we get any new ideas.
How did you end up like this?
I don't know, maybe everybody could ride bears?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure you're wondering, and yes, at multiple points, characters end up in different cars through the power of hijinks and hijacking. And allow me to briefly ask why Indy never destroyed this Dial if he really thinks it's so dangerous in the wrong hands. Like, he had no problem kicking over an assload of important artifacts earlier. Just shove the Dial between a couple nice slices of rye and down that shit.
This is gonna be huge.
Mads escapes with the Dial, and on the helicopter, the CIA lady's like, okay, great, you got your stupid shit. We should go to Washington, D.C. now. And Mads is like, not so fast, lady. I need to find the obligatory map guffin that will lead to the other half of this Dial, and to do that, I also need the plane and your life. Stop! Similarly, Wombat, Shorty Jr., and Indy decide to work together because they need each other's help to find the map guffin, and Indy knows some Greeks who will lend him a boat. So now they're in modern Greece on a boat.
I got my swim trucks and my flippy floppy.
And they've determined that the map guffin is real deep in the water inside an ancient shipwreck. They also determined that Mutt died in Vietnam because Shai's lasting legacy is how often he gets murdered off screen in the 5th installment of major blockbuster franchises. Somebody's gotta do it, I guess.
Do it!
His death also caused Indy and Marion separation.
The loss would put an end to their marriage.
And Indy also says he doesn't believe in magic, but like, maybe you should, dude. You've witnessed magic and magic-adjacent stuff a lot. You once invoked the power of Shiva to set a dude on fire.
Shiva.
Basically, every god is real, and also aliens, and the space between space, and also Morocco. I mean, none of these things are explainable without magic, Indy.
It's called capitalism.
So yeah, they don some Big Daddy Bioshock Spock suits and head down to the wreck to find the thing, which they find, and they're attacked by eels, which some describe as the snakes of the ocean if you're trying to make a crap joke. And then Mads shows up, and it's all very tense, but they grab the thing and they return to the boat basically just fine, give or take the deaths of a couple of NPC divers that were with them. Speaking of, why would they even send Indy down there in the first place? He's old as hell. He's already got them there. Maybe send the young ones in to grab the thing, but maybe he wanted to do it, but he really shouldn't have.
How would you have stopped him?
He should just hide in the fridge until the young people grab the thing. But anyway, yeah, Mads is here now and is like, okay, the map is written in some nonsense code, so interpret it, please, Wombat, I'll pay you in jewels. And she's like, tight, will do. And she says a bunch of things that they all seem to understand and then explodes some dynamite in her pocket, giving them an opening to steal a different boat and escape. And while boating away, Indy melts the map a bit to reveal another part of the map that says another thing and points to another place that they should go to. And of course, they forget to lose Mads before changing course, so he easily follows them and steals their short round and throws him into another one of those vans that they're so fond of using. Indy and Wombat counter by stealing the car of a newly married couple because, haha, suck it, Italians. And they drive to the cave that houses Archimedes' tomb because in the ancient world, dudes could not help burying secrets with them. They're always like, oh, I'm about to die. Better duct tape this map to Jesus' favorite Arby's on my chest for explorers to find in 1500 years.
I wish I had clues to take with me
Yeah.
when I...
Once inside the cave, they literally sing in the hopes of finding the loudest part because something spelunking experts. And they climb for a bit, and then the bad guy van shows up, and they also start climbing and singing and and Indy and Wombat run into some big-ass bugs that they aren't fans of.
I feel physically inadequate.
And then they end up in an ancient fart room where everything smells like methane. And Indy has an idea to displace water.
Water displacement.
In a nearby pool, which I guess causes it to turn into a water slide. Because again, like the booby seesaw from earlier, not everything in ancient temples has to be a booby trap. It's important to remember to have fun in your fart rooms.
Archimedes was fascinated by John C.
They find the tomb in the other half of the dial, but they also find a modern watch, suggesting that Archimedes did actually travel in time, and I guess all he got was that stupid watch? Why didn't he grab an Xbox? What an idiot! Shorty 2 gets handcuffed to a big bad guy and they fall into a river, but it's okay because Shorty manages to drown the man to death. That won't haunt him forever, but the rest of the bad guys show up with the other dial half and they're like, sick, let's activate this bitch! But Shorty sort of attacks and Indy's able to distract the bad guys by just getting shot. Mads and Indy and the boys head to an airfield where Mads explains that Hitler had a lot of honestly pretty great ideas.
Kung Fu Bear.
He just wasn't great at executing them because of his aforementioned addiction to bull semen.
Hitler, he's the worst criminal of all time.
So Mads intends to travel back to August 1939, shoot Hitler to death, and then just take over, I guess?
I can hack you back in time to Nazi Germany.
But just because Hitler's dead doesn't automatically mean that Mads would be in charge. It also doesn't mean that he'll inspire the same shitty fervor that his predecessor did, unless he's bringing a few Xboxes with him. Then they'd follow him anywhere. And honestly, just a few minutes on Xbox Live is enough to turn a pretty decent chunk of the populace into Nazis. But whatever, it doesn't matter anyway, because though they use the dial to fly into a big crazy time fissure in the sky while Wombat sneaks aboard their plane and Short Round somehow steals a separate plane of his own that he also flies through the portal, where they end up isn't 1939's Germany, it's freaking 214 BCE Syracuse, which is actively being sieged by Romans.
Are you not entertained?
And because this is a movie, they fly their modern airplane so close to the ground, it's shot down by like a harpoon. This is basically the closest we'll ever get to a live-action adaptation of Civilization 3.
There is no shame in deterrence.
And then they like never pull up. They get hit by like 38 harpoons. Oh my god, say I'll show accurate! Fortunately, Wombat and Indy are able to parachute safely while the Nazis all explode to death, and Shorty finds a strange man in his back seat that is able to keep the plane out of range of 214 BC's most advanced pointy sticks. And in fact, they're able to land their plane next to where Indy and Wombat land before they can all hop aboard and fly back to the quickly closing time fissure of ultimate friendship. Archimedes shows up!
Archimedes.
And they realize that Archimedes created the dial solely to lead future people to his time so they could help him invent the Xbox like way earlier. The dial literally only leads to this time. It's so funny that it's like he made a dial that only leads to the middle of a siege, of like a war scenario. Indy is initially like, that's cool, I want to stay. And Wombat is like, yeah, but you're shot and you'll die. And Indy is like, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm old as shit, who cares? And she's like, yeah, but I'm not old. And she punches him unconscious and communicates to Archimedes that he better not pull any more time bullshit shenanigans. And then Indy wakes up in his own bed in time. And also, I forgot to mention, that's how he got the watch. It's a perfect time loop. Wombat is there, and also Short Round is there, and hey, how did they resolve the whole Indy being wanted for murder thing? The only people that actually know what happened are a dead CIA agent, a bunch of Nazis who traveled back in time and are currently exploded in 214 BCE Greece, current criminal Wombat, her indentured, apparently illegal immigrant child, and Indy. He's still going to jail, right? At least he gets a chance to hang out with Marion for a bit because she's come back and they reenact the kissy-weeness scene from the first movie. And thankfully, the movie ends before they just go to town on each other's old, aged bodies.
Get rid of the C word.
I'll leave when I'm good and ready.
Hey, is this actually ancient Greece?
Nope, it's actually the future, and actually I'm Skynet, and actually Dave is a Terminator. Give me your pillow.